Are you a knitter who's been too scared to give stranded colorwork a try? Well, have no fear, your By Crafty bestie is here to show you how to not only do beautiful colorwork, but make a gorgeous poncho at the same time. Let's go.
Show me love, show me love.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Marley Bird YouTube channel and the Kaleidoscope Poncho Knit Along, sponsored by Yarnspirations. I'm so excited for this knit along. I just have been dying to tell you about it. So let's dive in. This year, we are diving into the world of colorwork with our gorgeous Kaleidoscope Poncho. Trust me when I say this project might look intricate, but it's designed to be as joyful as it is beautiful. You're going to love every single stitch. You won't want to put this down. In this first video, we're going to start by covering the basics. I'll guide you through the essential techniques you'll need to kick off your Kaleidoscope Poncho journey with confidence. In this first video, we will cover a lot of the basics. I'll guide you through all the essential techniques you need to get started on your Kaleidoscope Poncho journey. In this first video, you will learn the long tail cast on, how to knit in the round. You'll master the knit one, purl one ribbing. You'll conquer stockinette stitch while you're doing short row shaping with wrap and turns. Then you will do increases with the make one, and you'll learn how to transfer needles from a small length to, or for a shorter length to a longer length. I mean, that's just the first lesson, you guys. Imagine what you're gonna learn from here on out. It's mind-blowing. Like all the knit-alongs I do with Yarnspirations.com, this one is free. So you can grab that pattern and watch all of these videos and work along with me all for free. All you need to do is click that link in the video description box below and you will get your pattern and be able to follow along week by week as we complete our poncho. So grab your needles, your yarn, and that free pattern, and let's make some magic. I cannot wait to watch your creativity shine as you're making this beautiful poncho. I'm so excited to jump in with this poncho. I made the first one and I knew immediately I'd be making a second one. So that all starts right here today. So grab your free pattern and your materials. Let's jump in. We're going to begin with the collar of our poncho. It's very easy, very simple, and let's do this. I am so excited. For this sample, I will be using the Patons Classic Wool in dark gray mix. This color is lovely and I think it will be perfect for the fall season. Now with this yarn, you can pull from the outside or the inside. It doesn't matter. It's totally up to you. For the amount of times you will be changing colors, you really could pull from the outside and it wouldn't matter. I have my size 9 16-inch circulars here and a stitch marker because that is important for this part of the pattern. Now I am going to go ahead and I'm going to pull out from the inside. And even though I have this gut amount, I'm totally fine with that because I know I'm going to use it up. So I'm just going to feel around here, try and find the end, and that is where I will get started. Now, for the start of our poncho, we will be using the long tail cast on for putting the stitches onto our needle. Could you use a different cast on? Yes. However, I really like the long tail cast on because it has a really good stretch and durability for this portion of the poncho. So if you're unfamiliar with it, we're going to learn. If you are familiar with it and you don't like it, I'm going to ask you to bear with me and trust the designer. We want to use the long tail cast on for this. So let's go ahead and prepare ourselves for that. For the long tail cast on, we need a long tail. So depending on the number of stitches you will be casting on, you want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough room to get all those stitches on. I will tell you here, it's better to err on the side of caution than to run short. So I always get too much yarn here. I can always just weave it in later and not worry about anything. Once you have the amount of tail that you want to use, go ahead and make yourself a slip knot that we will then place directly onto our needle. Okay, so I'm going to place this onto our needle. So far, so good, right? I mean, I haven't lost you yet. All right, so here's where the action happens. You ready? The first thing you want to do is make sure that the tail of the yarn is going to be over your thumb and the working yarn is over your finger. So you should have your hand positioned just like so. I want to go ahead and hang on to my slip knot that is on my needle so it doesn't go anywhere, right? We don't get to control many things in life, so let's control our stitches. We're going to take the tip of our needle, come down to the base of your thumb, and we're going to go up the thumb and scoop up that yarn. You see that? Now we swivel around, take the tip of your needle to the tip of your pointer finger and scoop down and grab that yarn. Now, if you look here in between my thumb right there, I have like a window, right? And what I want to do is I want to take this needle, I'm going to swing it through the window, just like so. And then I will let that yarn that's on my thumb drop off. I will pull the two legs of the yarn apart, like pull them apart like so. That tightens up your stitch, and voila, you have yourself a nice cast on stitch. And we repeat the process. Tail over the thumb, working yarn over the finger. Base of the thumb, go up the thumb. Tip of the finger, go down the finger. Pop through that window, and then off your thumb and pull. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb and pull. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb and pull. Up the thumb, down the finger, through the window, off the thumb and pull. Now, obviously I'm doing this with one hand. However, I know that a lot of you have trouble working this with one hand, and I want you to know that it is possible to do this with two hands. It's a lot more reminiscent of an actual knit stitch because that's really what you're doing with the long tail cast on, but it might be that that's easier for you to handle. So I'm going to show you how to do this with two hands, but it's the same process. So if you have this down with one hand, keep going. If you're struggling, you want to try something different, let me show you how to do the long tail cast on with two hands. All right. Okay. So we're going to separate these two portions. We have our needle. Maybe you hold your yarn just like this when you're throwing. Just think of it like you're going to hold it like that. And then we're going to hold this. Okay. Grab your tail, take your thumb, and just scoop going from back or underneath and then towards you, just scoop that up, okay? So now you look like this. Now you're going to go to the base of the thumb and scoop in there. So this is like you're going into the stitch. Imagine your thumb is the needle. So we went into the stitch. We're going to wrap around our needle, just like you would if you were knitting. And now we're going to come out of the stitch and then let it fall off the needle. Okay, so here we go. Grab your tail, scoop it up. So this is just like a stitch sitting on your knitting needle. So my thumb is the knitting needle. I'm going to go into the stitch, wrap my yarn around the needle, come out the stitch and off. All right, into the stitch, around the needle, out the stitch and off. It's the same thing as when you're going like this, into the stitch, around the needle, out the stitch, and off. Into the stitch, around the needle, out the stitch, and off. So I'll show you that again, just to make sure. Okay, we're right here. Into the stitch, around the needle, out the stitch, and off. Do you got it? Hopefully that made things a little bit easier if you were struggling the first time around. Let's go ahead and cast on the number of stitches you need for the size you are making in your poncho. Once you get all those cast on, we will go ahead and join to work in the round. So let's work on that.
Show me love.
Once you get those stitches cast on, it's then that we will take a look at our stitches. Now, when we use the long tail cast on, we get this nice ridge at the bottom of our stitch. And that ridge is helpful because we can follow it along to make sure that none of our stitches are twisted around our needle. So as you go from one needle to the next, you can make sure that that ridge, it doesn't ever look like that, okay? And if it does, you just put it all down into place. Once all of this is nice and secure and it's straight and you know it is, go ahead and place the needle with your yarn attached to it in your right hand. Pick up the other needle with the first stitch we did in our left hand, and we are going to join to work in the round. Again, take a second just to look and make sure that the base of your stitch, that little ridge, is all nice and even. Before we join, let's grab our stitch marker. You can use any stitch marker you like. Place it on our right hand needle, and then making sure that your yarn is not like going through your needles like down here. You want to make sure that it's coming out the top here. Don't work with your tail. Make sure your tail is out of the way. If you have a really long tail, we can cut that here in just a minute. But make sure you're not working with your tail. Grab your working yarn. Let's go ahead. I'm going to cut this real quick. I'm just going to leave like about 6 inches or so. Grab your working yarn, and we will go ahead and jump into our knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So you knit 1 stitch, bring your yarn forward, and purl 1 stitch. Bring your yarn back. When you bring your yarn back to the back after you purl, give it an extra little tug just to tighten up any slack you might have, and then do your knit stitch. Bring it forward, do your purl stitch, bring it back, give it a little tug, and do your knit stitch. You will work this all the way around your needles, and when you get back here to the start, you'll slip your marker and you'll do it again. Now, it's very important you make sure you're putting your knits on your knits and your pearls on your pearls. If you don't do that, you will begin to get some seed stitch or some really unique stitches going on. We don't want seed stitch for this. We want to have a knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So let's do this. I'm going to get around this first round, and then I'll show you how you would start your second round, okay? As you come to the end of your round, your last stitch will be a purl stitch. You will simply slip that marker over. Okay, if you have a little bit of slack there, it's all right. Just kind of give your tail a tug. And then you immediately will begin with your knit 1. And then you would transfer to the purl 1, and you would carry on. Again, really make sure you pull that extra slack out of your purl stitches. It will make your knit 1, purl 1 ribbing look really nice and clean. So as we're going around here, you'll see that you are stacking your knits and stacking your pearls, and we will have some really great ribbing happening. Okay, so it doesn't look like much yet, but once I finish my ribbing, it's going to look spectacular. Now let's go ahead. Finish your ribbing until it measures about 1 3/4 inches or 2 inches, totally up to you. And then join me back here and we'll move on to the short row shaping.
Show me up, show me love.
And welcome back, everybody. Hopefully your ribbing went just fine. You didn't have any issues. Now we will carry on with the shaping of the neck. And you might be like, Marley, what does that mean? Well, here's the deal. Have you ever put on a garment and it felt like it was like choking you? Like it always felt like it was like falling to the back of your body? That's because you need some extra height in the back of the neck area, so that way as the garment sits on your shoulders, it rests forward a little bit. We will accomplish that by working what are called short rows around the back portion of the poncho. So it's actually very easy to do. Let me show you. Now, there are many different types of short rows we could do. For the pattern, I wrote out wrap and turn short rows, but if you're familiar with the German short row, you could absolutely substitute that for this technique as well. Okay, so we've just finished our ribbing. If you wanted to do one full round of just knitting so that you could get started with a round of knitting before you jump into your short rows, you could do that. I'll leave that up to you. But for everybody else who just wants to jump in, we're going to carry on with just stockinette stitch, okay? So we're going to start off by knitting the number of stitches that are written in your pattern. For me, that's 25. Once you've knit that last stitch, it's time to do the wrap and turn. So you're going to bring your yarn forward, slip the stitch from your left-hand needle over, bring your yarn back, and then put that stitch back on your left-hand needle. So that's the wrap, and this is my turn. Okay, so once you've done this, you're now on the wrong side. Okay, so this is what makes this a short row, is that you are literally working rows shorter than the full circle of your piece. So the wrap and turn makes it so that we have secured our yarn to the next stitch over, and when we turn, we're now on the wrong side of our work. So now that I've turned my work, I'm going to purl back 25. So I'm going to essentially purl to my marker, and then I will slip my marker and purl another 25 on the other side. So let's go ahead and get across here. These are the short rows, so you're on the wrong side. So we're creating stockinette stitch fabric because we knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side. Can't get that situated. Right as I get up to it here, slip my marker, and then I will now purl 25 stitches on this side of my marker and do a wrap and turn. So 1. Once you have purled the number of stitches you need, it's time to do a wrap and turn. Bring your yarn between the needles to the back, slip the next stitch over from your left-hand needle, bring the yarn between the needles to the front, and then move that stitch back over to the left-hand needle. So that's our wrap, and this is our turn. So now we're back on our right side, and we carry on. Now it is on this row when we get to our wrap and turn, we're going to be working past that. So we need to handle that wrap and put it on our left-hand needle and knit it together with our stitch. So let me show you how to do that. First things first, we go ahead and get over to our stitch marker. So I'm going to knit over to my stitch marker, slip my marker, and then you'll notice that the number of stitches you will work past that stitch marker is greater than the number of stitches you worked previously. So that is where we will have to work with that wrap and turn. And it's really not that hard to do. All we're going to do is hide the wrap with our stitch, so that way it doesn't show. All right, so here we are. I've slipped my marker. Now I have to work across 29 stitches for my size. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 23, 24, 25. My next stitch is the one that has my wrap around it, okay? So I'm going to grab the wrap from the front. Okay, I'm going to grab the wrap from the front. I'm going to place it on top of my left-hand needle, but I'm going to put it behind the actual stitch. Now what's going to happen is I'm going to knit this stitch through the back leg, and you'll see I have a very nice hidden wrap, okay? The wrap doesn't show anymore, okay? So that was my 26, 27, 28, 29, and I do a wrap and turn. I'm on my right side, so I bring my yarn between my needles to the front, slip my wrap between my needles to the back, slip that stitch back, turn my work, okay? Same thing over here. We're going to purl to our marker, and then as we purl to this direction, we will go ahead and hide our wrap. So this one's a little bit different because we're on the purl side, but it's similar enough that we're still going to hide the wrap. All right, so let's get over to where it's time to hide that wrap on the purl side. Okay, when you come up to your wrap and turn on the purl side, you'll know where it is because the count will work out, but you're going to find the wrap, okay? It looks like it's strangling the throat of the stitch, essentially. You're going to grab it from the back part of the wrap, which is actually the right side, right? Over here is the right side. So I grab it from this direction. I'm going to bring it over top of the stitch, just like so, and then I'm going to purl it just like normal, okay? I'm going to purl it. If I look at it from the right side, you can't tell that there was a wrap there. It looks like just a normal old stitch, and you carry on, okay? So then you would go ahead and work the number of purls after your wrap and turn you needed to do, okay? When it's time to do your next wrap and turn, remember, you're on your wrong side, so you bring your yarn between the needles to the back, slip your stitch over, bring your yarn between the needles to the front, and then put that stitch back to your left-hand needle and turn. Okay, I'm going to give you a little tip. If you are having trouble finding that wrap when you're coming back to the wrap and turn, why don't you go ahead and add a stitch marker to the wrap so that way you can easily find it the next time you come to it. Let me show you what I mean. I'm going to grab a stitch marker, and I just did that wrap and turn, right? So I'm going to put a stitch marker literally into the wrap, okay? So it's just around, see how it's around the yarn? It's just going to sit there around that wrap. With that stitch marker in place, I can easily identify where my wrap is the next time I come to that wrapped stitch. So now that we have identified it with the stitch marker, we can go ahead and carry on. So that's my wrap and turn. So I'm going to go ahead and work to my marker. And then as I slip my marker and work past, once again, I will be working past my wrap and turn on the other side before I get to my final number of stitches I need. And what you will notice, guys, as you're doing this is the part that we're working back and forth on is getting longer, but the overall piece is not getting longer. We're just adding some short row length right here. And it's really just to have the poncho lay nicely as it's on our shoulders and not fall back to the back of our body and essentially choke us, right? All right, so now I go ahead and work past this one. I have reached the point where it's time to do the wrap and turn again. So I will grab my wrap from the front, bring it up and over top of my needle all the way to the other side of my stitch. And I'm going to knit this through the back leg. Okay. And then I go ahead and carry on. So that was 30, 31, 32, and 33. And then I do my wrap and turn. If I wanted to put a marker right here, I could go ahead and add a marker on this one too. So that way I can identify where that wrap is. If you're having trouble, you can do it on both sides. Okay. So I've wrapped, I've turned. I am now on row 6. So I will be purling across. And this is the first time I get to show you what it will look like with that stitch marker in place for the wrap. So it'll make things so easy. I'm going to show you how to do this. Let's get over to that stitch marker, shall we? All right, I'm coming up to where my marker is. So here's my marker. You can see it's on my wrap, right? So this is going to make it really easy. I can just use my marker to literally lift my wrap up, right? I lifted it up and it's on the other side of my stitch. And then I just go ahead and purl the stitch and the wrap together. And I can take my marker out because I will want to use it right over here. That's 33, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and turn. And you'll notice that I like to put the marker where it's on the right side because that's the side that we're going to be picking up those wraps from. And I am ready to go. I don't know if you guys just noticed that, like as I'm turning back and forth, my work itself is wanting to go underneath my needles and back and forth. Just always make sure it's always just nice and straight for you whenever you're ready to get started. All right, so I've turned my work. I'm ready to do my row 7. I'm going to work across. When I get to my marked wrap here, I will go ahead and pick it up and knit it together with my stitch. So let's get through row 7. Here we go, row 7. Here's my wrap, so I can pick it up, bring it up and behind my needle, just like so. And like I said, I knit through the back leg. I think it looks better just to have that little twist there to lock in that wrap. If you don't want to knit through the back leg, you can knit through the front leg to join them together. That's totally fine. I just like mine through the back leg, so that's what I do. All right, it says 34, 35, 36, 37, and then work my wrap and turn. I'll go ahead and keep that marker there so I don't forget it, and turn. So this is my row 8, and this is the last row that we will have a wrap and turn worked. After this row, we are going to go back to working in the round. And on our first time all the way around, we want to make sure that we're still picking up those wraps and knitting them together with the stitch. That way they disappear. So let's go ahead and finish row 8, and then I'm going to show you how to do that full round where you pick up the stitch and the wrap on the all the way around. So we're working in the round again. Okay. I mean, you're so close, guys. Stick with me. So let's get down to the next wrap stitch. so that way we can work it. And as you're going along here, like I said, you're going to notice that all of these stitches we're working right here, they have more fabric underneath them, obviously, because that's what we're creating. We're creating extra fabric for this section of our poncho. All right, so I've reached where my wrap is, so I pick it up, pull it behind my work there, and I'm going to purl it together. There we go. Take my marker off and then carry on. Work my next wrap and turn. And this one, I'm going to mark this wrap also, so that way I don't miss it. And turn. All right, so once again, that completed row 8. So I have all of this fabric over here, right, where my marker is. That's the back of my poncho. And then I come over here. So up here where we have these stitches between these two markers that haven't been worked, that's the front of our poncho. So that's the front of our poncho. So we've created extra fabric to work up around our shoulders and the back of our neck. So that's pretty awesome, right? That completes row 8, and now we get to go back to working in the round. But before we can do that, let's go ahead and we're going to knit over to our stitch marker that signifies the start of the round. Once we get there, we will then continue on and we're going to knit 2 full rounds. On the first round, we want to make sure that we pick up all of those wraps from the wraps and turns and make sure that they are knit with their accompanying stitch, okay? So first things first, we want to knit back to the start of our round. So where your marker is, we're going to get back to that starting point, all right? So let's go ahead and we will knit over to that starting point. Now that we are at the start of our round, this next round, like I said, we're going to pick up our wraps at the same time as knitting the stitches. So I'm going to slip this. So this full round is just plain old stockinette. We're going all the way around and we will have 2 wraps to pick up on this round, right? Because we have 2 wraps that are just sitting there waiting for us. And if you used a stitch marker, you will easily find them. If you didn't use a stitch marker, you might have to look a little bit, but you should be able to identify them because you have a little bit of a gap in your fabric between the stitches where your wrap is. So I'm coming up to the marker that I use to mark my wrap here. Let's get over to it. And one more stitch. And just like before, take my stitch or my wrap, pick it up and move it over to the other side. See how it's on the other side of the stitch? I'm going to drop it. And then like before, I'm going to knit through the back leg and just knit it together, knit those 2 together, the wrap with the stitch. I can remove my marker. And now I go ahead and I carry on. And when I get to the next wrap, I will hide that as well. Now the next one might seem like it's a little tricky because we made it when we were on the purl side, but we are going to make it work. So here we go. Let's get over to where the stitch is. Here we are. There's the stitch. So we're going to pick it up and I'm going to put it onto my needle. Now this one, I'm going to look and see what it looks like if I knit it through the front. I just want to see. And if I do that, see how it shows that wrap. It actually makes it look like it's in front. So I don't want to do that. I'm going to knit through the back. Let's see what it looks like. When I do that, you can see it has this actual stitch on top of the wrap. So I prefer that. So I'm going to keep with that. Again, just knitting it through the back, putting those 2 together, and then carrying on. So when I get all the way back to my marker now for the start of my round, I will have completed 1 round of just basic knitting and I'll have to do 1 more round. Okay, so it's 1 more round. So that completes 1 round. So I have 1 more round of just knitting and there are no wraps. So we're simply going to knit. And there you have it. This is the end of my second round, so I can slip my marker. I'm just going to put my needle right into there. What you'll notice is where your marker is at the start here, this is the back of your poncho. So if you lay it down, you're going to see a bunch of fabric back here, but if you turn it around, you don't have as much up here. Obviously, there's only 2 rows up here. So this is the front, this is the back. So as it's laying flat, as I meet up the ribbing on the bottom, you can see I get myself a nice bit of fabric here on the back of the neck, which means I'm not going to be adjusting my poncho every time I'm wearing it. It's not going to choke me. It's going to lay on my shoulders nicely. Isn't that cool? Okay, now that the collar and our neck is complete, it's time for us to work those increases for the yoke or for the chest measurement, okay? So we will be working increases systematically throughout the entire poncho, and this is our first set of increases. So it's at this point that you might need to transfer over to longer needles. Same size, still the same size needle, but just longer needles. You can do that by grabbing a longer set of size 9 needles that are 24 inch or 32 inch or whatever you may need. And we are going to just simply knit onto the new needle from the old needle. For me, I'm lucky enough, I'm using convertibles. So I'm actually just going to take my new cord, and in place of my right hand needle here, I'm going to take my needle off, put it onto my new cord, and then as I knit, I'm going to knit onto this, which will go to my new cord, and all of my stitches will transfer over. All right, so I'm going to set that down, and we're going to carry on with our knitting. I know this looks confusing, but the same thing applies. If this needle was attached, you would grab your longer needle and we would carry on. So what we are going to do is we're going to work increases by working a make one. So you will knit 2 stitches, okay? So knit 1, knit 2, and do a make one. And I'm going to do that by grabbing this bar right here that's between the 2 stitches. I'm going to lift it up and put it onto my left-hand needle. Now, depending on how you lift that up and put that on there, you will knit it through the back leg or the front leg. And here's how you decide. Whichever way is the hardest to get into, that's the way you want to do it. So for me, this front leg, the front part of my stitch is stepping forward. So if I knit through that, I'm going to get a hole, and I don't want a hole. So I'm going to go around it and go into the back leg of that stitch. Can you see how I'm in the back leg? And I will knit into the back leg. And see, I don't get a hole. And then I'll do that again. I'll knit 1, knit 2. I'm going from front to back, lifting it up and just placing it on my left-hand needle. So that makes it so the front leg is forward. So I will go in through the back leg, yarn over, pull through, and I have an extra stitch. And I'm going to do this all the way around. Knit 2, grab that bar, put it on your left-hand needle, and then knit it through the leg that's the hardest to get into. That'll make it so that you don't get a hole, okay? So you do this all the way around. 1, 2, lift up the bar, knit it through the hardest leg to get into, and continue. As you come up to the end, what you'll notice is when you knit your last 2 stitches, all of your stitches will now be off of the needle that you did use, and all of your stitches will be on the needle you transferred them to. Let me move this over for my convertible. And don't forget to finish with that last make one. Add your marker, and you're ready to go for the next round. So now you have a bunch of stitches on your needle, but we're not done. We have to do 2 rounds of basic knitting, and then we have another round of increases. So let's go ahead, knit 2 rounds, and then we've got to work another round of increases.
Show me up, show me love.
Whew, 2 rounds and a lot more stitches. Okay, it's time for another increase round. And one thing you'll notice if you're looking at all of the sizes is on this increase round, we're not doing a general increase for all the sizes. Each size has its own number that they have to knit between the increases. So make sure you identify the number that is for your size, and then we're going to do essentially the exact same thing. You'll knit across that number of stitches, and then you'll do a make one, and then knit across that number of stitches and do a make one. By the end of this round, you will have the full number of stitches you need to carry on and jump into the color work. So this round is very important. When we're all done, you want to make sure that you're counting all of your stitches and you have the same stitch count as written in the pattern. So for me, I'm making the 2x, 3x. So I will go ahead and I will knit 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I will work an increase. So just like before, I'm going to pick up that bar. I'm going to knit it through the back leg to make it tighter and carry on. So I will keep doing that. I'm going to keep doing that all the way around, okay? If you ever get stuck and be like, oh, I forget how many stitches I've done, go back and look for where you did your increase, and you'll be able to identify it because it'll be a stitch where there's no stitches in between, underneath it. So there's my increase. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and then I can work my increase. Just a quick note here to remind you that you need to look at the number of stitches you need to do for the size you're doing. It's not necessarily truthful that the first number of stitches you would do before your increase is the same as the second set of stitches you would do before your second increase. So make sure you're looking at the pattern. When you get to the last stitch, don't forget to do your last make one. All right, do your last make one. Then slip your marker, okay? Then we will knit a round. Here's a little tip. On this next knit round where you're just knitting, count all your stitches as you're knitting around. It's a great chance for you to double check that you did all of your increases. If you happen to need an extra stitch or get rid of a stitch, you could do it really easily on that round. Simply do a make one or just knit two together. If you wanted to just frog back and redo the previous round, you could, but nobody's ever going to know. Just hide it in this next round, okay? 58, 59, and 60. Woo! I have 160 stitches, which is exactly what I needed. 160 stitches. That's what I needed for the size I'm making. I'm ready to be done. Okay, if you are making the small medium, the large extra large, or the 2x, 3x, go ahead and set your homework down and wait until the next lesson. If you are making the 4x, 5x, you have 3 more rounds. You have a knit round, an increase round, and then another knit round. And then you can set your work down and wait to the next lesson. Just a heads up, guys, this is the only lesson that we will have for this entire poncho where we only work with one color. The rest of the poncho is all about color work. So if you are familiar with color work, you're going to love this. And if you're new to color work, don't worry. You're going to fall in love with it too. You just have a little bit more learning to do, and I'm here to teach you. In the next lesson, we're going to dive into some of those color work charts. We're going to learn about stranded knitting and holding our yarn in 2 hands, and a little bit about color dominance. There's a whole lot we're going to learn in the next lesson, so you do not want to miss it. Listen, as you guys are working on your poncho, make sure you share with me on social media. Use hashtag MarleyBird and tag me at @TheMarleyBird on Instagram so that way I can smash your like button and give you a ton of encouragement. That's it for me, everybody. I hope you're enjoying the Kaleidoscope Poncho Knit Along with Marley Bird and Yarnspirations. I'll see you at the next lesson.
Show me